It's the Beatles. They say it's your birthday. My next guest, it is her birthday. Ann Coulter is the author of Adios America, the left's plan to turn America into a third world hellhole. Happy birthday, Ann Coulter.
Why, thank you. I've already gotten my best gift from Donald Trump.
Okay, so we know two things about this. Well, we know a lot more, actually, but let me boil it down to two. Huge number of people just don't believe President Obama is handling ISIS overseas or here the way he should. We can see people running to Trump as fast as they can. And Republicans, including people like Dick Cheney, are condemning Trump.
Yes.
So what would you say to them?
I think this is the establishment's last stand against Trump, and if it doesn't work, and I predict it will not work, I think this is wildly popular what he's saying, and wildly common sense. Are they finally going to say, okay, fine, if he gets the nomination, we support him? This is the biggest onslaught against him I've seen yet, and it's funny. He may as well have come out for, puppies and apple pie, given the widespread popularity of what he said.
Well, is there anything actually illegal or unconstitutional about doing what he said?
No, I mean, there are various ways to do this. What's interesting is that there is no thought to, yes, this is a desirable policy. Now let's look at the laws and the ways we can do it. No, it is just immediately viciously attacked. For example, I've been tweeting out like mad just over the past 45 minutes, which is hard because I have to watch MSNBC. This is really the greatest birthday I've ever had. Of course, there's celebrations all over town, but I just want to stay home and watch MSNBC because they're hysterical. It's hilarious. You can't miss it, John Gibson. But just what I've been tweeting after the Iranians took our hostages, President Carter moved to deport Iranian students in the country. There were about 55,000 of them in the country. Of course, it was challenged in courts. What they did was call them all in for interviews. If you're an Iranian who claims to be a student, we're going to go over your visa with a fine-tooth comb. And a lot of them, you could do this now with anyone. A lot of them, they'd find errors, or they had overstayed the visa, or they weren't in school, or they wouldn't give their names, a lot of them. They were quite obnoxious, many of the Iranian students. The only problem with the program, later reported by the New York Times, was the INS didn't have enough people to administrate the program. But it was upheld by the courts, upheld by the D.C. Circuit. Absolutely, you can selectively deport certain people here. And of course, you can exclude certain countries. I think most people would agree with Donald Trump. I know. How about stop issuing visas to terrorist-producing countries? And even as for citizens, though I think that wasn't part of his official policy statement, I think that was just something he sort of said off the cuff. Yeah, I mean, even citizens under, and this is something I haven't investigated. I just know a few basic ways you could do things like this. Under various treasury laws, there are countries and organizations that if you do transact any business with them, including traveling to those countries, you can be subject to up to 30 years in prison and millions of dollars in fines, and that includes drug cartels, obviously the Sudan, Cuba, North Korea. So there are lots of ways to skin this cat. Okay. The point is, do we support the policy? And I think the American people are saying, yes, we support the policy.
Okay, well, let me, this takes all of 12 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
This is Donald Trump himself asked exactly how he would do this. Listen, number 39.
The agent would then ask the person his or her religion?
That would be probably, they would say, are you Muslim?
And if they said yes, they would not be allowed in the country.
That's correct.
Okay, now, Ann, is that legal?
Oh, absolutely. I think the problem with it is I don't believe them. I mean, I've been writing about this terrorist who was convicted a terrorist immigrant out in Idaho just this summer. He came in from Uzbekistan with his elderly parents, wife and child, didn't have a job. So, whoa, he is totally the immigrant we're dying to get that is making this country a better place. He got in claiming he was from Uzbekistan, and he claimed he was being persecuted because he's a Christian. Turns out he wasn't a Christian. He's writing back to his jihadist buddies in Uzbekistan, I am the one closest to the infidels. How about I blow up a military facility in Texas? So he was convicted. I think the problem with determining it just by asking them is they will lie. I mean, that sounds like the Obama vetting.
Well, okay, so one of the other things Trump said in being questioned since he made the original statement yesterday is, do you mean American Muslims who might be returning from their vacation in wherever?
In Saudi Arabia, in Yemen, in Pakistan. That was what I was just referring to. Of course. I mean, you're talking about American citizens like Anwar al-Awlaki. How about the guy who just shot up San Bernardino, returning with his Pakistani or Yemenese wife? Yeah, you travel to terrorist-producing countries, especially if you're bringing back a wife with you. Yeah, they should be excluded. And there are ways of getting around that. For one thing, I mean, he's already come out and said, and he is absolutely correct, that this anchor baby policy, the Supreme Court has never upheld it. That is an incorrect interpretation of the Constitution. If he says, I'm sorry, I'm not accepting anchor babies, whoa, we lose a lot of terrorist, quote, citizens right there under the law. They're not citizens. They're treated like citizens, but they're not. They're not citizens under the Constitution.
Okay,
the
now,
mastermind
Annie.
of the Mumbai bombing was an anchor baby.
Ann,
Mm-hmm.
the reason for the Republican freakout is they believe that there aren't enough people who will be motivated to get up and go vote for Donald Trump because they think he's right, and that the Democrats, number one, they're being taken off the hot seat over their lousy ISIS policy at the moment, and number two, they're going to have huge ammunition to shoot at Donald Trump should he become the nominee, and this essentially gives the White House over to Democrats for another third term of the Obama administration. In your mind, is that a legitimate worry?
Number one, I don't think that is the reason they're freaking out. Number two, if it were, they're wrong. The reason I think they're freaking out is because they're subjected, they're victims to this mass psychosis that requires us to treat the rest of the world, particularly the third world, the most poverty-stricken, terrorist-producing, dishonest third world peasants, as if they're American blacks and we owe them. We don't owe foreigners. No, we owe descendants of American slaves, American blacks subjected to Jim Crow. We are correctly guilty and trying to remedy that. But the idea that we owe something to the rest of the world, no, we're not a battered woman's shelter. But you see this throughout. It's gone beyond the demand for cheap labor, which is also a large part of it. They just want lots and lots of poor people being dumped on the country to lower their labor costs. It's gone beyond that to the point that not allowing in, half of Pakistan is treated as if it's some sort of civil rights violation. That's why they're freaking out. Donald Trump is the first one. Both parties, the Republicans and the Democrats, for decades now have had a gentleman's agreement. We won't raise immigration if you won't. Let's just keep the flow coming. And since around 1970, we've been bringing in about 1 million immigrants a year, 90% of them from the third world. Even when they don't flip out and commit mass murder, they are not helping our country. They are not helping the people already here, including the immigrants already here. They're taking jobs. They're sucking up vast amounts of welfare and social services. The American people have been telling pollsters forever, stop, please stop this dump of immigration on the country. And neither the Republican Party nor the Democratic Party would respond to the legitimate request of the American people. This has been boiling over. Trump speaks to it, and this is the establishment's last stand against him.
Ann Coulter is a columnist, author of the new book, Adios America, The Liberal Plot to Turn Our Country into a Third World Hellhole. Annie, it's always great talking to you.
Good to talk to you, John Gibson.
And happy birthday.
Thank you.